Welcome everybody. It's episode 314 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the Ledley King of Irish MMA media, Graeme McDonald, as we talk about a big week coming up actually in the world of mixed martial arts. We're going to start off with that. We're going to look forward to next weekend and talk about the big pay-per-view card coming up. PFL have a good card coming up. Bellator actually have a great card coming up as well. And then I will throw it over to Sean Sheehan to look back at the fights from this weekend, and Sean will break those down. But before that, we must tell you it's Father's Day is just coming around the corner, and nothing says I love you, Dad, more than a world-class trimmer for his balls. You heard that right. The Lawnmower 3.0 from Manscaped is the best body hair trimmer on the market. Manscaped offers precision engineering tools for your family jewels, and you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code SEVEREMMA at manscaped.com. Myself and actually, I'm after moving all my stuff, and I left my Manscaped one upstairs. I don't have it for today, so I don't have my Manscaped. Graeme, do you have it in the background there anywhere? No, we'll need to pull it out. I'll have to get it out here. I'll need Manscaped to send me a second one
for beside the microphone purposes.
Yeah, beside the microphone
already.
Yeah, and that's it. Manscaped is the only
Father's Day one though. The Father's Day one. I was just thinking when you were saying that the weed whacker. You see some old men or some middle-aged men with some serious fucking nose hair. So. Yeah. You know, that weed whacker gets straight in there.
It absolutely does. Manscaped is the only men's brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming, and just launched a performance package, which is a perfect gift for your dad this upcoming Father's Day. Imagine surprising your dad with the ultimate men's hygiene package that says your balls will thank you on the box. Have you ever seen nose bushes you were just talking about, Graeme, coming out of your dad's nose? Well, included is the new Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, which is waterproof and uses 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual blade system. That was actually very hard to read. I did a great job of that, I must say. Look guys, 79% of partners admitted that long nose hair is a major turnoff. Why not hook your dad up with the best tools for the job here? The bundle includes Lawnmower 3.0. Because of their skin safe technology, this is the best trimmer in the market for your balls, butt and body. The trimmer comes with the LED light and it's waterproof, so you can trim in the shower as well. This is a perfect trimmer for someone who likes to travel. Let's not forget their famous liquid formulations: crop preserver, ball deodorant, crop reviver, ball toner as well, to maximize your ball hygiene routine. Get the Performance Package 3.0 now to receive their 2 free gifts: the Manscaped boxers and shed travel bag. The Performance Package is the best value that Manscaped has to offer, and it's hot off the shelves. Get 20% off and free shipping. The code SEVEREMMA at manscaped.com. Get your dad a gift that you know they will use. That's 20% off at manscaped.com. Use the code SEVEREMMA. Don't forget that you came from your dad's balls this year, so show your original home some love with Manscaped. 20% off. SevereMMA, manscaped.com. Graeme.
Yeah, you see, I didn't even know you were going to talk about the nose hairs. And
no. It just makes sense. Do you know what? It just makes sense, Graeme. It just makes sense. Anyway, let's get into this card coming up next weekend. And looking at it like down through it, I think it's one of those cards where, we've been talking a lot about matchmaking and stuff for the last while, and I think cards like this are apart from Nate Diaz maybe on this card. I know which you're a big fan of, Graeme. It's one of those cards, I think, where there you go, you got the opportunity, where it's really I think a hardcore's delight. There's fights we really want to see. Like, a name for me that I've really stuck with recently has been Jamal Hill. I think this guy is the next champion at light heavyweight, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him fighting. I know a lot of people, I saw him tweeting today about Brad Riddell against Drew Dober. Very, very good fight. Before we even get to the top ones, a lot of people around this part of the world, Joanne Calderwood, are big fans of her against Lauren Murphy. Chase Hooper's on this. I know a lot of people like Chase as well. This is one of those cards, I think, where it's not that they have filled it to sell pay-per-views, apart from maybe Nathan Diaz and the 2 title fights, obviously. But they've also I think they've just made it for everyone, to be honest. And I'm not sure how much that is meant or how much it kind of just fell together. But that is what's happening here. This is a very, very good card at UFC 263, isn't it, Graeme?
Yeah, there's definitely some very interesting fights in there, the Nate Diaz fight. Nate Diaz is always interesting, even though, the fight is probably, only going to go one way realistically, but he always brings a bit of a spark to the event, a bit of something extra, something different. two events. Obviously, you mentioned Hill as well. Like he's going in there against Paul Craig. I think that's going to be a very, very hard night for Paul Craig. You know, he can always pull off a submission throughout his career, but I see this being a very, very hard fight for him. And there's definitely some interesting ones on the undercard as well. But it really is the main card where the most interesting fights are. Like Figueiredo, obviously, since Demetrius Johnson left the division, he's kind of had a new lease of life and looked fantastic. And obviously, me and you have talked about it in the past. We always enjoy these really high level flyweight fights. The technique and the technical ability and the speed of it is obviously always entertaining. So so there's a bit of a mix of everything in there.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, and there's like the mix of the high level title fights, the mix of the name with Nate Diaz on it, and the mix of the fighters we really want to see, and like from like a personal point of view, maybe that's not the same for everyone, but for me it personally is, especially with Jamal Hill. But I do you know what's very interesting? I want to get to it straight away at the main event, because I went back and watched Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori just before we do this, and I actually might do it on the rewatch because it's an interesting fight. It's one of those fights where you look at it, and it wasn't actually that long ago. Let me pull it up here how long ago it was, but it was one of those fights where I think both of them have changed a lot since, but are still very similar fighters. So the fight was in 2018, so just over 3 years ago. Watching it though, I think the key from a technical point of view, and usually when we get to these big fights and we look at what might be the X factor in the rematch. We have a big rematch coming up in the next card, obviously with Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, and to me. And we know about the leg kicks in the first fight with that. To me, the leg kicks are a big X factor here. I think, and I'll actually get to a bigger part of it in a second, but I think the leg kicks from Adesanya, the way he hit Vettori when he was coming in with him, just stopped all his forward motion. Just really, really hurt that forward motion. The jab as well of Adesanya was so good in that fight to stop Vettori coming forward. So I think if Vettori tries to fight that way, and I think he's actually gotten a lot better at fighting that way. He's gotten a lot more technical, and I think he's brought an extra bit of power to his striking as well, although he's not this big knockout merchant, but he is a very, very good fighter and improved a lot. I think if Adesanya fights that way against Vettori fighting that way, I think Adesanya is just going to really, really easily win that fight. Now, the second part of that is, right, he got the takedown at the end of the third round, and he said he won the fight. No, he absolutely didn't. He got destroyed for the first 2 rounds, in my opinion. Got a great takedown, and was able to win the fight on top in the third round. Now, Adesanya has improved huge. It's a funny thing, right? Because you look at it and say Adesanya was destroying him for 2 rounds on the feet, and actually got destroyed for 1 round on the ground. Now, I think it's actually the opposite way around coming into this fight in terms of Adesanya and where he might actually be found out by Vettori. I'll tell you now if I do think he will or not in a second, but I think Adesanya's takedown defense has improved so much it's not actually a weakness anymore, unless it gets late in the fight and unless you can catch him once and manage to get him down. I think once he's on the ground, he's easier held down, but I think his ability to stop takedowns, especially in the first few rounds, is very, very good. What I think Adesanya has shown, especially in the Blachowicz fight, is and the Romero fight as well, is if you don't come onto him, if you don't push forward against Adesanya, he actually isn't as great a fighter as he is when you do come onto him. I'm not saying he's not a great fighter, but you can make him look a great fighter if you fight the way Vettori usually wants to fight, which is coming forward, and that's counterintuitive, because when you fight someone like Adesanya, who's big and long and jabs well and kicks well from the outside, you usually want to say, all the way in or all the way out. I think against Adesanya, it is all the way out. I think the best way to be is all the way out and give him absolutely nothing. Now, that might make for a boring fight.
Woodley versus Wonderboy.
Yeah, but it does. Even I mentioned 2 fights, the Romero fight and the Blachowicz fight. I think Blachowicz being kind of bigger as well really helped. Although, watching back that fight, there isn't that much of a size difference between Vettori and Adesanya, a bit surprisingly.
And watching back that fight, who do you think won it?
Oh, definitely Adesanya. But it was very easy 2-1 win. But I really think Vettori, if he fights smart, if he takes a lot of things from that Blachowicz fight. Now, I don't think he's as good as a fighter or a kickboxer as Blachowicz from the outside. But if he does a similar sort of waiting job, even more than Blachowicz, tries to get the takedowns when they do give themselves up, and maybe be happy to give away the first couple of rounds, wait till Adesanya comes forward a little bit, and then use that to kind of get those takedowns or get some shots inside. I think that would be the best way for Vettori, honestly. I think Adesanya, now, like if you go in and you fight Adesanya and you say, right, I'm going to have a striking match with him, I'm going to go forward, I'm going to put the pace in him, you're almost certainly going to lose. I think you need a technical, tactical match against Adesanya, and it's a funny thing to say, it's because he's so technical and tactical, but if you out-technique or out-tactic him, you can
unorthodox, kind of like Jan did, or not that he's like went in with that plan, he just kind of naturally is unorthodox on the feet, and obviously he had Adesanya usually has the length advantage and he didn't. But yeah, I agree with you here. I think Adesanya is going to take this. I think there will be some, like, most of the rounds, if not all of the rounds, will be close. But I can see him just, using his superior striking and movement and jab and leg kicks, as you said, as he used in the first fight, to kind of, cruise without risking too much and without kind of exposing himself too much to the takedowns that I'm sure Vettori will be game planning for.
Yeah, like I think, I've said it, I think Vettori, or I think there is a way to beat Adesanya. I'm not saying like he's full Anthony Pettis now and there's a blueprint and everything, go in and just do it easily. It's very tough to do it, and I actually don't think that Marvin Vettori has the skill set to do it, but there is a way to do it. And my biggest question coming into this fight is not who's going to win it. I think Adesanya will win it, but I think my question is, will Vettori try it and get into a fight with Adesanya which is more technical, or will he get into like a brawl again, which is, if most people looking at this fight, and I guarantee you're listening to other podcasts this week, most people will tell you Marvin Vettori get inside the big man, land inside all the way in, all the way out. But I truly, maybe I'm wrong, maybe people disagree with me, I truly don't believe that's the way to beat Israel Adesanya. Look, he might come in and get all the way in and land a big overhand left and knock him out, and fair enough, but I think that is a more low percentage way of beating Adesanya. I think you beat him the way he's been shown to be beaten, and I think it's very interesting. Like, I think Adesanya, what he does very well against someone like Vettori and what he does very well against Southpaw is change stances, and I said that inside leg kick as well just takes Vettori off his feet so much. It's really, really good, and I'm very interested to see, because it's, we talk a lot, Graeme, about guys like Israel Adesanya or Francis Ngannou when he lost that first time, or even McGregor after he lost to Nate Diaz, how they bounce back. These invincible kind of guys who think, we think they're on the way to superstardom, they're on the way to win every title, they're on the way to the light heavyweight title for Adesanya, or the heavyweight title for Ngannou, or all titles for McGregor. But it's interesting to see how he bounces back, isn't it?
It's definitely different mentally, and it's a loss of momentum, but I think it's a little different than, the Ngannou situation, or, I think Adesanya can look back at that fight and think he won it. It's hard to know if he's, going in there thinking, I won that fight, or if he's thinking, oh, well, maybe I didn't. It's definitely, not ideal for the mental state and the momentum and confidence and all that stuff. But I don't really see it being a factor here. Like, if he'd have been knocked out badly, or, beaten badly over 5 rounds or something like that, then I think maybe it would be more of a factor.
Yeah, 100%. And look, it's an interesting fight, and it's interesting that the two title fights are both rematches here. Davidson Figueiredo against Brandon Moreno. So looking at him, I feel like the Vettori Adesanya fight will look the same, but there is a prospect that it looks very, very different if Vettori changes his ways and fights, the way against Adesanya.
But even if it does look the same, do you think Vettori would be too unhappy with that, with 2 extra rounds?
Yeah, maybe. But that is the thing. I think that is the thing now. If you look at Adesanya, like Kelvin Gastelum managed to do it to him as well, to kind of take him late. And okay, like it's not that Adesanya gets tired. I think it's one of these, gasses totally. I think he's one of these guys that kind of gasses, gets a second wind, and comes again. But there is a bit like, I think McGregor is a bit like that as well. There definitely is a question there, There definitely is a question there, and maybe it's not even a gassing issue. It's just like a kind of a predictable unpredictable, if you know what I mean. Like the way he changes stances and throws those feints constantly. It's like, right, if you're going to keep doing that and keep, feinting the way you do feint, at some stage he's just going to like catch one of them and make it pay, like, So I don't know. I think it's interesting, but I think with Figueiredo versus Moreno, I think that's very unlikely to look different, to be honest. I think Figueiredo might win more decisively this time, but I think that's a fight where both guys are just going to come out and go hell for leather. I think Brandon Moreno showed in the first fight that he can go hell for leather with Figueiredo, and I know we can talk about the short notice and everything like that for Figueiredo in the first fight. I'm really looking forward to this. I think is a one where at flyweight, look, these guys have it all. They're good on the ground, they're good jiu-jitsu, they have good striking, they're fast, they can both hit hard. Figueiredo, probably the hardest hitter in the history of that flyweight division in the UFC. And I think that's probably the X factor in this, and he's obviously really, really good submissions as well. Moreno probably doesn't hit as hard, but he's very, very good on the ground as well, and all around. I think this, like, the analysis of this fight is probably madness. That's the only word you need you need for it. This is fucking that song, welcome to the house of fun. Should we just play in the background?
If Moreno gets his way, but I could also see Figueiredo coming in there and taking him out early. We can, like, obviously the first fight wasn't his best performance, and maybe there was reasons for that or whatever, but I'm sure he'll be coming in looking to prove a point. Like, he obviously probably, most people think he won that first fight either way, with short notice or not. So I think he'll want to put a kind of stamp on it, and I could see him kind of going for it early. Maybe putting Moreno away in the first round.
Yeah, he has been known to do that, in fairness. On my creaky chair here, sorry. He has been known to do that, in fairness. Like, I think the thing with Figueiredo is, I wonder in that first fight how confident he was in all areas in terms of his cardio more than anything else, because like he's known in the past for missing weight. When, I remember you said it the second that fight was made at the time, this guy has to make it. What was it? I think he took, 2 UFC pay-per-views in a row he fought on. So it was like 3.5 weeks notice or whatever it was, for the second fight against Moreno, or for his second fight in a row, which was against Moreno. And that was a big issue. Now it's been a while since obviously that fight and this coming up to this rematch, so he'll have plenty of time for preparing stuff. I think he will. I agree with you. I think he'll come out faster in the first round. Although how much more fast can you come out than a flyweight champion of the flyweight fighter? But I don't think this will be going to a decision, to be honest. I know I said that the first time, but I think there was reasons around it why it didn't. I think Figueiredo, I think Moreno will come in and try to make a fight out of it, and I think it'll kind of play into Figueiredo's hands a little bit, even more than Vettori against Adesanya. I think he'll throw those little uppercuts again inside. He's just, like, what Figueiredo is really great at, and I'll definitely do him on the rewatch as well this week, even though a lot of his fights have finished early, but what he's really great at is kind of finding ways to hurt you and finish fights, but also just put like a beating on lads a lot of the time. Like I always talk about Perian when I'm doing the rewatches on him, and the way from the break he kind of lands knees, and he just, it's that extra bit of violence that comes after like a period of like, I'm going to be okay. And it's the same with Figueiredo. I think he just like takes the life out of you at times with the shots he lands and with the power in which he lands them as well. And he's one of the most fun fighters in the UFC. So I'm looking forward to seeing this one. I'm always looking forward to a flyweight title fight, and I think this one, especially in a rematch, of a great fight, arguably fight of the year from last year, is going to be really fun. Okay, Nathan Diaz versus Leon Edwards. Graeme, I know we spoke about it at the time this fight was announced, and I think we did a couple of breaking news podcasts, and I really couldn't get my head around how this fight was happening and why it came about. And I remember in one of those podcasts, or maybe it was even talking in private or somewhere, or I think it was on a podcast, but I remember saying, look, by the time the fight comes around, it'll kind of make sense to us, and we'll be all about it. Now, I'm all about this fight. I'm looking forward to seeing Nathan Diaz back. I'm looking forward to seeing Leon Edwards fight. It still doesn't make much sense to me. Does it make any sense to you?
Well, it makes some sense, you know, in terms of Nate Diaz being a name, and you know, maybe looking to get Leon Edwards more kind of recognition. It might be something to do with that. Besides that, competition wise, and like, you know, if this was a league, I don't think. I think there's a lot of. You know, Nate is obviously a confident guy as well. And he'll be thinking, I think I said this before in the podcast, but he'll be thinking, if I go in there and beat Leon Edwards, who's, you know, beating all these guys and in the talk for these fights or whatever, then I'll be there. You know, that's his kind of attitude to a lot of things. You know, I beat the guy and then I am the guy.
Yeah, it is true. And I suppose it's a wise way of doing it, like he did it once before with Conor McGregor. But it's a weird one, because I don't know, Nate has never been on like the title train, and I suppose he is a bit, and we all, you know, he's the one who's called them fairy tales in the past, you know, famously, but it feels like Nate Diaz was
They're
more
all on steroids, as he once said.
He did, in fairness, but he seemed to have been off like the title train more than anyone else. And like Leon Edwards,
actually, just to mention that, have you heard anything about Nate Diaz's drug test and his company being responsible and all those reports? Because that just seemed to disappear, strangely enough.
Is this Conor McGregor on the podcast with me?
No, if it was a certain other fighters, maybe not naming names, maybe the reaction would be a lot different.
Yeah, maybe it would be. Yeah, that did disappear. Do you know what? I'm kind of happy it disappeared. I'm gone totally off the drugs bandwagon altogether. I'm just like, let him at it, to be grand. Sure, what difference does it make? Be fine. But yeah, what were we talking about? Leon Edwards, Nate Diaz. Yeah, like, I think this fight. But the problem is, right, you made a great point there. Nate wants to take Leon's place in the division, basically, and put himself in line for the next title shot. But like, that next title shot, what is it? It's like Kamaru Usman, or, you know, who's Kamaru? Kamaru looks like he's fighting Colby next. It seems like that. And, you know, Wonderboy is up there as well, fighting Gilbert Burns. It's on the McGregor card, so that's on next month's pay-per-view. So, like, it looks like it's going to be Colby. I think Dana White said that during the week. So, like, the winner of that, like, is he going to be fighting Colby? Maybe that's a fight that'll sell a few pay-per-views.
Colby, now the trash talk might be very good for you.
Okay, I'm into it now. I want to see that one. But yeah, I feel like either of those two fights, though, they're bad matchups for Nate, first of all. And they're also not, like it's not... Let's say if Masvidal had won the title, okay, fair enough. I think that would be a big thing, you know, the rematch and everything like that, or if it's McGregor in that position, or even if it is a fight to come back and you're fighting McGregor next, or you're fighting, I don't know, or even if it was Khabib, like if it was a lightweight fight and Khabib.
Sure, anybody with a bit of wrestling though is just a bad style matchup for either Diaz for.
Yeah, it's really weird, but I think. And I know, I remember when this fight was announced, I was talking to Jake over in the Toon, and we were both discussing, I think someone had said it to him as well, about the elbows of Leon Edwards. And like, Leon Edwards is known, like if you go and watch a few Leon Edwards fights, the first thing you will see are his elbows. He's devastating, cuts you up, and he's going to cut Nate Diaz with elbows. I don't know, but someone asked Paddy Power to do a bet that Leon Edwards cuts Nate Diaz with elbows, because I would take that price. Whatever the price is, I would take it on that to happen, because it's just going to. I think Leon is a very tough matchup for someone like Nate, who will stay on the feet with him and try to stay on the feet with him. And when it goes to the ground, Nate's obviously very good jiu-jitsu, but I think he is very easily taken down. But Nate doesn't hit that hard, and unless he's gonna like bamboozle you stylistically and technically, I think if you have the technique to go with him, and you have a good power or a devastating blow like Nate or like Leon Edwards has with his elbows, I think it's a very, very tough matchup for Nate Diaz. It's very hard to see a way for him to win it. What do you think?
Yeah, the leg kicks from Leon Edwards, I think, are going to be part of the game plan. Leon Edwards is known to be a good executor of game plans. Obviously, we've talked about how well-rounded he is. He may not be like amazing at anything, but you've talked about it a lot. Like, Nate Diaz's jiu-jitsu maybe was able to submit people and, give people the finger while triangling people years ago, but that's not going to fly against somebody like Leon Edwards. It's very difficult to get submissions off your back. If you can get on top of Leon Edwards, then maybe it's a different story completely. But I see Leon looking to land leg kicks. I don't think he'd be too afraid to strike with Nate, boxing wise. But if that starts going downhill, then he can transition into some probably easy enough takedowns if the pass is anything to go by, and just kind of win from the top with small shots, or even work some positions and submissions of his own.
Yeah, there was a fight we were watching recently. I'm not sure what fight it was. Someone will probably remind me in the comments. But do you know what? I remember it was the Beneil Dariush Tony Ferguson fight. I remember after that fight, I remember saying maybe that was the opportunity for Beneil to make a big statement. To go in there in a division where you have probably 5 or 6 lads' names ahead of you, but probably only really should be 1 or 2 in terms of quality of wins and everything like that. I think that was an opportunity for him to put himself in that next position. I think this for Leon Edwards is an opportunity to go in there and finish Nate Diaz, to put, to cut him open, to do something really nasty to Nate Diaz and take the Colby Covington name out of the title picture, take the Wonderboy name, take the Gilbert Burns name out of the title picture, and put Leon Edwards at the top of that list to fight Kamaru Usman. I think it's a real opportunity. Like, to me, most of the time, right, when you've basically an unranked fighter fighting someone who's ranked number 3 or 4 in the division, that is like a manna for heaven for the guy who is the unranked fighter. But this is the other way around. I think this, if for Leon Edwards, is like the biggest name he could get, the easiest fight he could get, with a huge opportunity to probably get the biggest win of his career, even though it's not against a quality of fighter, I think, as he could have fought in this similar sort of position. So
with a lot of eyes on him as well.
Loads of eyes, absolutely. So it's great. It's a great opportunity for Leon Edwards. But like, Nate hasn't looked great recently either, and I think if it was a few years ago, you could always say maybe Nate would rise to the occasion. We've seen him doing it a few times. Look, we saw him against Conor McGregor. We saw him against Michael Johnson famously. A lot of people talk about that fight.
I think when Nate's fighting regularly, like maybe not he's not known for fighting regularly, but when he doesn't take these big gaps, obviously your timing and everything's going to be better. You're in the gym more, preparing for fights. He's off fucking doing who knows what when he's not in camp. So I think, if he had his timing down on his striking and his, all that stuff, maybe, he'd be a better chance of him kind of catching Leon with something here. But yeah, he's never really known for his knockout power, one-shot knockout power anyway. And I think Leon can, as I said, transition to an easy enough takedown if he does get hit with a few shots, or he is getting outclassed in the boxing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think this will be an interesting fight afterwards as well, to see what the reaction is afterwards. If Nate wins it, I think it'll be very fun. But a Nate loss will be very interesting. I think if Leon wins it, we know what's happening next. He has to be right there in the title contention. But
do we know what's happening next? Though we you know,
probably not. I take it back.
He'd want to have a good promo. He'd want to have a good promo ready to try and cement that the position.
That's why I say as well, the performance, winning. Look, beating Nate Diaz should be enough, but in this day and age, in this current climate of the UFC and of MMA in general, it's not. You have to make that statement, and you have to kind of, I suppose, take it to the next level. But,
as a pro wrestling mark, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Would you recommend a Leon face turn, or a face or turning heel?
Well, I think in that division, right, I think Colby is obviously the heel. Kamaru Usman is. I don't know with Kamaru Usman. I think he tries to be a babyface at times, but then he also tries to be a heel at times. I would go babyface if I was Leon Edwards, and I would be like, I'm gonna rid you of these boring wrestlers at the top of the division. I'm gonna bring fun back to the division. I'm gonna bring fun. Go in there and have a great fight with
the People's Champ.
People's Champ. Yeah, I'm gonna. We had years of boring GSP, with years of boring Johnny Hendricks, years of boring wrestler Tyron Woodley, years of boring wrestler.
It's slagging all these guys off, not a bit heelish stuff.
Okay, yeah, it is, but like it's Stone Cold kind of heel, it's kind of babyface. The lines blur these days, so yeah. I think heels are more fun these days than babyface, but if you're a cool heel, like not if you're a fucking Colby Covington heel, then everyone just hates you. But yeah, I don't know. I think I like he's not going to do that though, is he? If there's anyone that's going to cut a promo, it's definitely like not going to be Leon Edwards. I think he's probably like the least likely to cut a great promo, but however. So yeah, look, a good card. But Damian Maia versus Belal Muhammad as well in this card. A fantastic fight. I really, really like that fight. Belal, I think he deserves this opportunity after taking that Leon Edwards fight on short notice and having some good wins recently. And for Damian Maia, he's kind of said before this could be his last fight or one of his last fights. And with Damian Maia, you might actually believe him. He seems like a sensible enough guy. But yeah, if he wins, maybe not. But that should be fun. Who'd you pick on that one actually?
Maia is very old, but he lost to Gilbert Burns, and Gilbert Burns is a very elite upper echelon fighter. Like, he's proven that he's getting better and better, and there's no shame in that. And before that, he kind of turned it around. Obviously, Lyman Good, Anthony Martin, and Ben Askren. After his 3 losses to Woodley, Covington, and Usman, but I think Belal Muhammad it's his fight to lose. If he can, stay away from the little kind of inside and outside trips that Maia loves, it's his fight. But Maia always has that. If he can just get one of those trips, like they're not like normal wrestling takedowns that people drill in their sleep in the gym. They're different. So he's caught a lot of people out with that, and if he does get you down, he has a way of ending up in a really dominant position immediately. We've seen many times how good a squeeze is. I'll always remember the blood, like the bursting Rick Story's nose like a pimple, face like a pimple. So like. It's hard to. It's if you make one mistake and end up on the ground, it could be all over depending on the clock. So I'd stay away from betting wise, but I'd pick Muhammad if I had to make a free bet.
Yeah, I think Belal Muhammad will win it as well. I haven't looked. Obviously, we will be doing. Will we be doing the betting show? We will, I suppose. Well, you're heading off here now for a couple of days, but we'll do a betting show on some guys anyway during the week. But I would fancy. I think Belal Muhammad in that one. I think he's just too good on the feet, and as John Danaher said about jiu-jitsu there last week, it's no longer the be-all and end-all. So after many years, Sean Sheehan has been proven correct by the jiu-jitsu community. Thank you very much. As we mentioned, Paul Craig, Jamal Hill.
You backtracked massively from your jiu-jitsu doesn't work to what John Danaher said is.
But what John Danaher said is really the crux of my argument for years.
You're reaching there. You're worse than American media.
I'm actually not reaching that. I actually reached from my own
point. That's
point.
not a shot at the MMA media, by the way. That's the media as a whole.
As a whole? Why would you not be taking shots at the MMA media there?
No, but I just wanted to clarify what the intention of my words were.
Speaking of the MMA media, I actually got an email the other day from the MMA JA saying they're looking for another fucking 50 quid for the yearly dividends. What the fuck did they do with the last 50 quid they get off us? I won't be fucking paying that anyway.
They got another what'd you say?
Donation.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll have to research more about that. But
a lot of shit.
I wonder what the plans for that is.
Yeah, I don't know. They've done fuck all so far. Hopefully, I would just like an email about it every so often. It's like myself and Ian will have a Chasing Pack Irish version out as well on Wednesday, I think it is. And we were talking about the IMMAA, and I was like, all I want is an email. All I want is an email from them lads every so often. But
sure, I heard you walk around Limerick with a sticker that says "Proud member of the MMA Journalists Association."
Yeah, if they're looking for another 50 quid out of me, it'll be once proud member of the MMA because I won't be in anymore and I can fuck off.
I'll need to send you a new sticker that was worn out from all its use.
All its use, yeah, it is. But anyway, this UFC 263 card, very good. Drew Dober, Brad Riddell, Darren Stewart against Eric Anders. I feel like that fight is a rematch for some reason. I think that probably... Did that happen already? Look it up there, Graeme, and I'll go through the rest of it. Lauren Murphy, Joanne Calderwood. That's a number one contender fight. I think it has to be in that flyweight division for the unfortunate task of having to fight Valentina Shevchenko if you win that. But I would fancy Lauren Murphy in that one. Although Jojo has been improving a lot over the last while, but you never know what Jojo is going to show up. If she's at her best, you know, I think she can beat Lauren Murphy. But I think Lauren, if she's wise, she'll try to get that fight to the ground and beat Jojo there. But what a fight as well. Mozart Ivalev versus Hakim Daudu. This guy, Ivalev, I think he's a future UFC champion. If you're a bit of a casual fan and you're tuning into this pay-per-view and there's someone you want to look out for, that would be the fight I would be tuning in for. This guy is a really, really good fighter, and Daudu is very, very good as well. So that'll be a fantastic fight.
Yeah, that Darren Stewart, Eric Anders was the illegal knee, no contest.
That was yeah. I knew it. So there's a memory, and people say I have a bad memory. There you go. So Pini Kinzad and Alexis Davis, Matt Frivola, Frank Camacho, Chase Hooper, Stephen Peterson, and 4 other lads make up the rest of that card. So really, really great card. 2 title fights at the top, and Leon Edwards versus Nathan Diaz. Also, the Leon Edwards Nathan Diaz fight 5 rounds, the first time ever a non-title fight, non-main event has been 5 rounds. So very interesting to see how that works. I don't think he'll go 5 rounds. Maybe, to be honest, I think if Leon makes a statement, I don't think he'll go it. But looking forward to seeing it and seeing how it plays out over the next while. Right, Graeme, let's take a quick look at this PFL card. I'll just go really quickly through it and see what you think of it. So this one is happening on the, let me look at it here. Where's my date? There doesn't seem to be a date, is there? The 10th of June, Thursday. So Anthony Pettis is headlining this card against Alex Martinez, who's 8-0, even though Anthony Pettis lost his last fight, and Clay Collard's way down the area. Bubba Jenkins fighting Bobby Moffat. Clarissa Shields, we'll get to in a second, is fighting Brittany Elkin. Brendan Loughnane is fighting Tyler Diamond. Chris Wade is on the card. Kibilubov is on the card. Alayev is on the card. Oban Mercia versus Marcin Held. I like that fight. Nathan Schulte is on it, who won the last 2 years, if I'm not wrong. Clay Collard, as I mentioned, and Lance Palmer as well on the card. So really, really good. A lot of the staples for the last few years. Brendan Loughnane as well. Obviously, Limerick's own Brendan Loughnane is on this, so I'm really looking forward to all that. What do you think of Clarissa Shields, though, Graeme? I think this is an interesting one, because it's always cool to see crossovers, and she's been training in Jackson Winklejohn's for the last while. Brittany Elkin, she's 9 fights in. Okay, she's 3-6, but by no means someone with no experience or just an absolute can to fight in your MMA debut. What do you think? And you're looking forward to seeing Clarissa Shields making her debut here?
Yeah, well, I'm interested to see how she looks. 3-6 is, as you said, it's not a great record at all, but it does have a bit of experience and a couple of amateur fights on top of that as well. So she's definitely been she's been fighting MMA since 2011. It's a long time compared to Clarissa Shields. I know she's been in the gym and all that stuff recently, but it's different when you actually fight. We've seen boxers not look great. It's a different game. So there's a lot of questions there that, even though her opponent maybe not the best, but just from how she's going to look, how Clarissa's going to look is what's intriguing about this.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. It's funny, I was talking to Gavin Casey there on Twitter during the week, and after that, Derek Brunson put out the tweet, why are no boxers coming over to fight in MMA? And I think the main reason is because of the money. There's a lot more money in boxing, but I think in women's boxing, maybe outside of Katie Taylor and maybe even Clarissa Shields and a couple more, there really isn't any money to be made. We saw Heather Hardy talking about that before, so that's coming from her.
Would anybody in boxing women's boxing have made anywhere near what Ronda Rousey would have made?
Maybe only Katie Taylor. Like, I'm not sure. I think there was a few, like Muhammad Ali's daughter was pretty good at for a while, and I think she got some acclaim. And I think there was oh, there's one women's boxer that Joe Rogan is always talking about as well. I can't think of her name, but from years before, long before our time. But modern day, I think it is like women's sports. I talk about it a lot in the Chase and Pack, but women's sports is a thing that, and MMA has very much led the way. It's a thing that's getting more
legitimized it, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it really. But even like you see women's soccer, it's non-stop on Sky Sports and BT Sports and stuff now. Not like non-stop talking about it. There's women's sports all over Sky Sports, so it's a thing. Like women's sports is a thing that is really being, pushed at the moment.
Sports is a thing. Any kind of sport is a thing. Like that people want to watch live.
Yeah.
So TV companies need stuff like that because everything is like, I want to binge watch it, or I'll record it and watch it later or whatever, or watch it online. So they desperately need, live sport. And I think the UFC obviously, kind of showed that, you can mix in women and nobody's going to blink an eye, you can normalize it pretty quickly. Yeah,
100%. I think the way, because it is, and like it's normalized in terms of pay as well, maybe not at the very top because, at the very top, no one's reaching Conor McGregor levels of money, I suppose. But apart from maybe Ronda Rousey, maybe it is. But like, if you're a female fighter coming in from Dana White Contender Series and you're a male fighter earning, the same money, so it's and they're both not earning enough. Let me just put that out there straight away. But it is like it's weird.
For somebody like example like Jake Paul or Logan Paul. For them to learn MMA or to go in and fight MMA, there's a lot more chance of them getting fucking embarrassed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And boxers don't want to come over and get embarrassed and kind of represent their sport, or how it's going to be. The narrative is going to be like you're representing, it's boxing versus MMA. Like it always is that narrative. And nobody wants to be, humiliated. No,
there's no hiding place in MMA, really. Like and you can't really carry someone in MMA as well. A lot of people said Floyd carried McGregor, and whether you believe that or not, it's something that could be possible. Like this weekend, I don't know if it already happened by the time this podcast comes out, but the Floyd Mayweather Logan Paul thing, like I'm sure Floyd will carry him for a while and then end up maybe knocking him out, or just I don't know what's going to happen, but like that's possible. But in MMA, it really isn't with the lack around and stuff. But I think. For Clarissa Shields, and I think in women's sports as well, if you're a high level athlete, like the level of athletes to kind of come over to women's MMA is still relatively small, especially at the higher weight classes. Like I think that is something that is improving an awful lot. But for someone who's an undoubted world class athlete at a combat sport, I think it's transitioning. Like someone like, I don't know, name about Canelo Alvarez, right? An undoubted high-class, world-class athlete. It would take him years upon years to transition over to become an entry-level MMA fighter in a top league. Years. I don't. Women's sports, I think, and I think especially at that 155-pound division, it's very, very, very light in that division. There are very few women that are, world class, and that division doesn't really exist apart from Kayla Harrison. So, I think it's easier to transition over for someone like Clarissa Shields than say like 155-pound male, or than any weight class of a male, because the divisions are just so good and so so filled with talent, I suppose, at the moment. So I'm looking forward to seeing how she does. I'm sure I think she'll win this fight, and I think she'll probably have a few more and see how they go as well. But it's always interesting, the crossovers, seeing boxers coming in, and she can kind of say that as well, put it like that. She calls herself the greatest of all time, and I'm sure we're flying the Katie Taylor flag, but she's calling herself the greatest fighter of all time, and then she comes over and she's 5-0 in MMA or whatever it might be as well. That gives her a leg up in it. I think, like, I always think Ronaldo, having done it in England and Italy and Spain, gives him a little bit of a leg up.
I don't think being good at boxing has anything to do with being the best fighter in the world.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but like more, I think the greatest combat sports women's athlete of all time, maybe she was probably getting that. But I think who do you think is the greatest female combat sports athlete of all time, Graeme?
I know pretty much nothing about boxing, and especially women's boxing. Mm-hmm. But in MMA, Amanda Nunes. So
Amanda Nunes or Katie Taylor, who would you go for?
Amanda Nunes.
You fucking. Oh yeah, just because you're married to Brazilian now, you're fucking turning into one of them as well. You're turning your back on the Irish. Is that it?
She got a bunch of dodgy decisions to win them medals. She can't even throw a punch.
I'm obviously joking.
Poor
Poor old Katie. That's a national treasure you're talking about. Ariel Wani will be on you. He'll absolutely kill you. But,
I'm obviously joking.
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to seeing Clarissa Shields fight here. Brendan Loughnane as well. That fight is a big one because Tyler Diamond is a very, very good fighter, 12-1 and a high level wrestler. I think Sean Denny asked last week if Loughnane can get over this one, is this like him set to win that tournament and set to get to the playoffs and get to the final? I think it probably is, to be honest. I think if he wins this, it'll be very, very tough for anyone to beat him in that division. So really looking forward to seeing that. And I have a soft spot for Mark Sheen held as well. I'm looking forward to seeing his level of jiu-jitsu being shown in Clay Collard against Joelton Lutherbach, who is like a German Brazilian, which is kind of cool. So looking forward to seeing that. Bellator 260 as well coming up next week. A fantastic card Bellator have on, as I absolutely lose my voice again for about the 5th time today. Douglas Lima versus Yaroslav Amosov. What a fight this is. 170-pound title. It seems like every time Lima fights almost, we talk about it being one of the best fights you can put on outside of the UFC. 25-0 Amosov. An absolute killer in all areas. And Lima, we know he's striker. We know how good he is. How'd you see this one going, Graeme? Do you fancy Amosov to go 26-0, or do you fancy Lima to hold on to his title?
I think I have to go with Lima. I think there's too many unknowns. 25-0 is a fantastic record and all that, but he's coming off a split decision win over Logan Storley. Who's obviously a good fighter and all that, but I think Lima has proven that he's like, a top class Bellator fighter, and I think the safe bet is Lima, but there's a lot of unknowns, as I said, and maybe this guy can rise to the occasion and get it done, but I'd have to pick Lima. He's just he's come out there and, put away Michael Page, with relative ease. A guy who's clowned how many opponents?
Many, yeah.
Many opponents, Obviously, Gegard Mousasi gave him some trouble there in his last one, but he's a bigger fighter, a longer guy, very experienced guy. He's caused a lot of problems for a lot of high class fighters, and I think that's a kind of out of division fight that you can kind of half write off. I think, in my opinion.
Yeah. I suppose it kind of is alright, but I'll bet you a tenner, Graeme. Go on, I'll throw my tenner on Amosov. Do you want to throw your tenner on Lima?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. I think Amosov is very, very good. I think he's a tough matchup for Lima, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I think I'm looking forward to Paul Daly against Jason Jackson as well. What a fucking fight this is.
Your boy, JJ.
My boy. I put Jason Jackson on Team Sheehan there not too long ago, and a lot of people are saying, like, who is this guy? What's this about? What's going on? And now he's fighting Paul Daly. I've been calling for them.
We listen to the podcast. We've been talking about Jackson for years.
Yeah, that's true. But I think he's a very, very good fighter, Jason Jackson. I think he'll beat Paul Daly, to be honest. I think he'll be able to take that left-hand shot. I think he'll be able to come through it, and I think he'll get the decision here. But Paul Daly, it's always fun to see him fight, and always fun to see what he produces and if he shows up and if he fights well. Both these guys, I don't have the records up in front of me per se, but they didn't fight that long ago, so it's a kind of a quick turnaround here, and I think that might be a good thing for both of these lads. I think both of them would like to stay relatively active and stay in form, and I think they probably have. But I'm really looking forward to who do you fancy in that one?
I'd have to go with Jackson is just Daly. I think he's going to exploit Daly's weaknesses. Daly. Yeah. If you stand and trade with him for too long, he's always going to try and land that left hand. But I think Jackson's going to know that the blueprint's been there for years. Jackson is well rounded. I don't think he should be afraid of standing. But I think the smart game plan will be to mix in takedowns, and we've seen Paul Daly get very frustrated with takedowns and kind of loses cool. And I think. He's obviously going to want to stand and bang like he always does. And I think as long as Jackson fights a smart game plan here, he should have a handy win.
Yeah, well, I don't know about handy win now. I don't think you get anything handy against your boy Paul Daly, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I think it should be pretty good. Aaron Pico returns on this against Aidan Lee. You know, Aidan Lee, a very good fighter. We've seen him obviously from the UK. We've seen him fight over on this side of the world a good few times. But I think this is good matchmaking, to be honest, for Aaron Pico. You know, Lee has won his last couple of fights. He beat Jeremy Peatley, and he won a fight before that as well. You know, he's lost a couple of fights to Saul Rogers and Dean Truman in Cage Warriors, but he's been around for a long, long time. You know, made his debut 6 odd years ago, so he's another good test for Aaron Pico. But I think Pico will probably just have enough for Aidan here. But I'm looking forward to seeing it. Arya Stark, Ilya Johanna is on this card as well against Vanessa Porto. Demarcus Jansen back. Kyle Crutchmere is on it against a 9-0 Georgian fighter, I believe. 11-0 Justin Gonzalez against Taiwan Claxton. Nick Newell must see TV all the time.
That Bobby King fight, you know, that's an interesting one. Like, he's coming off a win over Stephen Seiler. You know, that Stephen Seiler, like, he's a good fighter. Like, he's obviously, you know, maybe in another life he could have still been in the UFC. You know, there's guys that are in similar class to him, still fight in the UFC. So that's nothing to be sniffed at. Bobby King finishing him with an armbar. So you know, Nick Newell, is always entertaining. You know, I'm interested in that fight. I'm interested to see how Nick Newell can kind of, you know, how he's going to look. And we've seen him beat some really good guys. We've seen him in there like completely outclassed, like, you know, against Justin Gaethje. He was just ridiculous. But I'm always interested in Nick Newell fight.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So yeah, very, very interesting. Actually, there's Invicta as well, have a card coming up next weekend. And I believe it's the one night tournament, and Katie Saul, Ireland's own Katie Saul, is on that, who is the girlfriend of Brad Katona, who is fighting in and training out of Ireland at the moment. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, looking forward to seeing her on that. I know Clan Wars, by the time this comes out, has been on as well, and I think Dee Begley is on that card. There's myself and Ian, we'll go through it on the Chasing Pack anyway, and we'll talk about it more next week if the results and stuff come out. Yeah, it's good to see her on that, and it's good to see Invicta back. I know they were back as well last week, and we'll talk further about that in the Chasing Back as well coming up. But it's great to see Invicta back and doing good stuff as well. So a very interesting weekend coming up in the world of mixed martial arts, and some fantastic fights coming up. So actually, Graeme, before I hand it over to Sean Sheehan, give us your review of The Ultimate Fighter. I know you're a big fan of The Ultimate Fighter. You closely watched episode 1 of the new season. Tell us.
Oh shit.
I didn't watch it either. No one
forgot about that.
No one watched it. Who gives a shit?
I saw the records of the guys and I was like, oh really?
The problem is, like, someone like a Kamaru Usman could come from it, and like it could be that next great fighter. But is it worth watching?
And in the future, we can look back at those 2-round bouts, and
the thing about it is,
in all their glory.
I didn't watch. Maybe I watched one episode. Maybe I watched a bit of that season. But not watching that season doesn't make me appreciate or be able to speak about Kamaru Usman now. You know, because I missed out on that. It's just. It is TV that you can miss out on and not miss anything, you know?
Yeah, I actually did watch that Usman season.
Did you?
And he basically was just taking people down and laying on them, and they couldn't stop that. And he basically was completely green and raw, but just nobody could stop his takedowns. And he's a completely different fighter now, so there's really no relevance.
Yeah, that is true. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for listening. And I will now throw it over to Sean Sheehan for a review of the fights and actually I'm just looking at MMA fighting here. Kamaru Usman was on Hot Ones, so I must watch that here when I finish. But here's Sean Sheehan with a review of the fights from the weekend: Augusta Sakai against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Bellator, and the rest. Take it away, Shawnee. Thank you very much, Shawnee. Appreciate that. So a night of fights that went from, I suppose, the supreme to the horrendous. Also, there was no Bellator on this weekend. I don't know why. I said it like 3 times in the previous 50 minutes of the podcast. There was no Bellator, but there was a UFC, and it was your normal fight night card, I suppose, that we have been having over the last while. A couple of notable things, not anything world-changing. A couple of good fights and a lot of boring fights around the middle. You had Roman Dolidze versus Staropoli, which was one of the most boring fights I've ever seen, one of the most boring rounds I've ever seen. The first round of that one, just god-awful. You had Rodriguez versus Todorovic, not a classic fight. Montana De La Rosa did okay against Ariane Lipski, and I'm just getting the bad stuff out the way now before I get to the good stuff. Ilir Latifi, not a great fight against Tanner Boza. Salikov, Trinaldo, not great. Kirk versus Amir Khani, a very close fight, almost nothing landed. One of those fights where I scored a 29-28 Amir Khani, and there was a 30-27 Kirk, and I thought that was a good card as well, to be honest. Kirk won the second. I thought that was pretty clear, to be honest. But the first and the third, not very, very, very close rounds. Could have gone either way, and I can definitely see why the judges scored it for them. They opened up the car, Manon Firo, Sean Woodson, who I've a good time for, got a good win, a split decision there, and Claudio Pules as well got a win in the undercard. But I suppose the biggest thing from the undercard was Alain Patrick versus Mason Jones, which ended in a no contest due to an accidental eye poke. Very, very unfortunate for Mason Jones. Obviously, covering MMA at this side of the world, we're going to talk a little bit more about Mason Jones, I suppose, who was the ex-Cage Warriors double champion, wasn't he, if I'm not mistaken? He went up to welterweight and won the belt as well. So, obviously lost his opening UFC bout, so he was coming in here for his second one. Alain Patrick, as we've seen before, is a fast starter. He came out of the tracks very quickly, but Mason Jones dealt with it well, weathered that early storm maybe in 90 seconds, and then was just winning the fight. Had Patrick hurt badly at the end of round one. The referee could have stepped in. I think it was a good job. I didn't think it would have been the right time to finish it. Again, though, he came out, his wrestling looked absolutely fantastic towards the end of the first, and I believe into the start of the second as well. Did Mason Jones, and he had him hurt again badly. Just looked better than him everywhere. The fight was basically about to be finished. There was 2 or 3 shots left. Patrick, he was turning his back. It was a matter of time, honestly, and I don't say that very often in fights. When there are stoppages or when they're stopped like this, but it really was. And unfortunately for Mason Jones, he had an errant hand, an errant finger that went into the eye of Alan Patrick. It definitely caught him in the eye without a shadow of a doubt. He said he couldn't see to the doctor and the fight was stopped. Now, everyone can make up their mind on what they think. Do you think he was playing it up? Do you think he was milking it? Probably a little bit, but I'm no one to say. I can't see out of his eyes. But even whatever the decision was, if you're not in Patrick's spot there, that fight is over for you. You got poked. Mason Jones poked him. You can't blame Alan Patrick. He didn't put his fucking eye into Mason Jones's fingers. It was the other way around. He knew he was going to lose that fight, so he said, "Look, I'm going to take this no contest instead of the." If he did that, I have no problem with that. That's. You have to win. You have to avoid losses as well as you can. And if he did that, and I'm not necessarily saying he did that, but if that exact eye poke happened and he was winning the fight, or if it was an even fight at that stage, would it have ended the fight? I'm not so sure, and that's one I suppose you can make your mind up yourself, or you can. He probably is the only one that truly knows, but it definitely was an eye poke, so I'm definitely not blaming him or anything like that. But for Mason Jones, I'm not blaming Mason Jones either. It was a tough one. He did a great job in the fight after a tough start. Not necessarily a tough start in terms of like taking much damage or anything like that, but a tough start in terms of the way his opponent fought and how much of a task it was. So after that, he came back well. But look, hopefully Mason Jones won't have to get another shot in the UFC after this. And I know recently, if you don't win one of your first 2 fights, the UFC are getting rid of you. We saw what happened to Reece McKee, but they just can't with Mason Jones. I really think after that performance as well, Michael Bisping absolutely blown him up in the commentary, and he was, he'd every right that he did a great job in that fight, but it was very, very unfortunate. So, look, hopefully we will see Mason Jones again. Look, I wouldn't mind seeing the rematch even. I think it'd be a good fight. Not sure Patrick would want to take it after the way it went, but a good fight and a very, very unfortunate into that one. So elsewhere on the card, we had one of the fights of the year. To me, one of the greatest fights I have ever seen, just in terms of the way it built, and that was Santiago Ponzinibia versus Miguel Baeza. I'm recording this right after the event, and the fight of the night hasn't been announced yet, but this was fight of the night. If it wasn't, it's a complete and utter farce. What a fight! Just literally. It was like a Thai fight or something. The first round kind of started slow, but the reason it started slow was because of what Baeza did from the very start. And that was basically land the calf kick. He came out at first calf kick, literally within 3 or 4 seconds of the start of the fight. Baeza landed that calf kick, and I thought the fight was over. It buckled the leg of Ponzinibia. I genuinely thought that was going to be an end of it. He landed 2 or 3 more. You could see Ponzinibia struggling more and more, but trying not to show it. And I think he kind of caught himself then a little bit and kept going and realised, right, I can keep going. He kicked out the leg a little bit, kind of ran around the octagon for a second, not to run away or anything, but to kind of get the leg going again. And I think by the time kind of halfway through the second round came, I think he was okay with it. He took a few more leg kicks, and I think he realised at one stage, I've kind of taken his best shot now with the leg kick, and it's not going to put me out. It's not going to, it's not going to Conor McGregor me, or it's not going to anti-Edson Barboza me. It's not going to be one of them. And so I think he gained a bit of confidence from that. But Baeza, okay, if you've seen this fight, you know what happened in the end. But I still think Baeza, to me, one of the best up and comers in the UFC, in this welterweight division, an absolutely great division. And I think, I don't know if he'll be a future champion, but I think he's going to be a top 5 ranked guy for a long, long while. I think he's a fantastic fighter, and I think this will be a good learning experience for him. And after 6 or 7 minutes of this fight, after 5 minutes of this fight, I thought now would be that time. I thought he was going to be going up into the top 3 or 4 or 5 in the world and fighting the best, because he was really taking Ponzinibia apart. He really was, but Ponzinibia dug deep, like we very rarely see in MMA or any sport. He dug deep right down into the very soul of himself, and just pulled out this win. Got forward, gone inside Baeza, crowded him, as Michael Bisping kept saying on the commentary, crowd the kicker, and that's exactly what he did. And he just took the fight away from him. He landed harder shots, landed the more effective shots. Won the second round with about, maybe 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes of dominance, but it was enough. I think he did more than Baeza won, and didn't win the third round well. Landed some big shots. Although Baeza did okay for good parts of it as well, but Ponzinibia, I definitely think, did enough. And he got a 29-28 in all the cards. Just a fantastic fight. The second round, the last 7 to 8 minutes of that fight, the second half of the fight, were just brilliant. And I really think, I mentioned like a Thai fight, the way it built. It just built so well. It was a beautiful fight. It was a spectacle of a fight. And honestly, it kind of reminded me, and it doesn't often happen, of Gilbert Melendez versus Diego Sanchez, the way it kind of built to a crescendo. But I suppose it was kind of more competitive. Well, definitely more competitive than that fight. But yeah, I really, really loved this fight. It was a Sean Sheehan type of fight, a hell for leather, great skill. And to me, my favourite part of it was actually the way Santiago Ponzinibia adjusted in the middle of the fight with his game plan. Had a wonderful game plan in the middle. And I always say it, I haven't said it in a while now, because I don't think we've actually seen a fight like this in a while, at like a top level, where there has been a key adjustment in the middle of the fight to turn it around and take the fight. And that's what great fighters do, whether it's boxing, whether it's MMA, or whatever it might be. That's what great fighters do. And I'm not saying Ponzinibia was a great or an all-time great or anything like that, but on this night he was definitely great, and that was a great performance by Ponzinibia to come back after a very, very tough start. So it was absolutely fantastic. After that, as I mentioned, the Lids fight, absolutely horrendous. Skip that. Tybura versus Walt Harris. Again, Walt Harris to me has turned into like the Ben Saunders of the heavyweight division. He'll come out, he'll have a great start, almost finish his opponent, realise he's not finishing him. His opponent kind of gets his second win, comes back, and then ended up finishing him. And that's exactly what happened here. With Tybura kind of got on his back and landed some shots. Walt Harris had landed a beautiful spinning back fist, or spinning back forearm, maybe even. And then, was doing a great job early, landed some big shots. And I actually think he did the right thing at one stage. He kind of took that step back and realised, right, I'm not going to finish him now. let's take a step back. But when he did that, Tabora was like, right, I'm not getting finished here. And then he kind of took over, landed some nice shots, got the fight went to the ground, as I mentioned, and he got the back mount and was able to finish him with ground and pound. So a great win for Tabora. He's on to 5-0 now in the division. That was his first UFC first round win. So after 14 fights, so that's a big thing for a heavyweight. So a great win for him, and as I said, five in a row now. Then the main event, it was funny. This fight went 4 minutes and 59 seconds, and it was about after 4 minutes 57 seconds that the first punch was really landed. I was thinking, how am I going to score this? I think probably Jairzinho, because he landed a few jabs, but thankfully it wasn't needed because he landed two big left hooks, a right hand it was a weird right hand. I think I haven't really seen anything, but I think it was one of those ones kind of on the neck / behind the ear. Did I just say slash in a real sentence? But yeah, I did anyway. And Sakai ended up on the ground. I don't think he was necessarily like badly rocked. I think he was off balance. And I don't think he would have been finished if it was just, let's say if Rosenstruck had kind of walked away. I don't think it would have been the end of the fight, but Rosenstruck landed an absolute hammer of a hammer fist and knocked him out. That to me was a knockout blow. Those to me were the first three, the two left hooks and the right hand. They were great shots and definitely hard shots, but they to me were more setups for that hammer fist, because that hammer fist was unbelievable and it knocked him clean out. Few shots came after it, and the referee came in and stopped it. Good stoppage. I think Sakai was complaining a little bit, but I don't think there was too much to complain about, to be honest. So yeah, that was it. The whole card, I suppose, the standouts obviously was the Ponzinibia Baeza fight. Montana De La Rosa, good performance, great win for Tabora, and Rosenstruck getting back on the winning track as well. As you could say the same for Ilir Latifi, and obviously the Mason Jones one was a little bit unfortunate in that one. Right, so just a few things as well to mention before I wrap it up here, because you've probably heard enough from me now at this stage. I'll tell you some of the results from Clan Wars in a second, but KSW also had a card tonight, and there was some good stuff, and Sean Ninney has the results up, and we will also have Sean on the Chasing Pack, not next week, but probably the week after, to talk about KSW, what's coming up and what has just happened as well. But Saladin Parnisa came back and he won here after losing his first fight, coming off the kind of the freakish loss with the bicep knockout against Daniel Torres. 14-1 now. It's going to be the rematch next, it looks like. Pujanowski won and he looked good against Jurakowski from all accounts. Dario Stosic won at heavyweight, big KO. Looks like he's going to fight for the belt next against Philip de Vries, and also massive wins for Patrick Link, who's on a good run now. Roman Sebaski, who beat the Cage Warriors title challenger Donovan Desme in a solid decision, and UFC veteran Damian Stesiak got a win in the prelims with a great triangle as well. Apparently it was a good show from all accounts, and I'm going to catch that this week as well, and we will definitely talk to Sean Dinney about that as well. All the results on the main page, SevereMA.com. Also on the main page, SevereMA.com, Clan Wars 39 and 40 results. Some very good wins here. One that stood out to me, Adam Gustab got a great win over Ryan Taylor. You know, Adam Gustab has been around the scene for a long time, and he's fought some of the best in the scene. Paul Hughes, if I'm not mistaken, he's fought him as well, but a good win for him. Shimrock, I was talking to a couple of people about him, and everyone was waxing lyrical before the fight, and as well, he got a good win here. Henry Corrigan got the win. Dara Kelly over Solomon Simon. That to me was the standout bout of the whole couple of cards here. I've seen Solomon fight in Cage Legacy before. I was very, very impressed. And Dara Kelly, the 2020 Severe Amateur of the Year. So that's a big, big win for him there. Other standouts as well on the card. Trevor McKingo got a good win. As well on the card here, Dee Begley, who we've known, you know, he's already hanging around with Becky Lynch out of SBG. She got a win as well. Kenny Mokahana defeated Adam Shelley. That was another standout fight on this card, and did it very well. Michael De Silva against Aaron Daniels. We've seen him around the scene as well, and I think it was Brian Moore talking about Aaron Daniels. On Twitter, he said he's very good, so that's a big win for him. Jared Harris, who's one of the best up-and-coming prospects in all of Ireland, fighting out of Owen Roddy's gym in SPG Charlestown, and his teammate Liam McCourt was also speaking about him over on Twitter, saying if she was half as good as he is, she'd be a very, very good fighter. So interesting. He beat Michael Friel, and other good wins as well. Adam Herzig, who's fighting out of Dundalk, if I'm not mistaken, he got a win as well. So check out all those results, severemma.com. It's great to see Irish MMA back. Great to see just people like tweeting about it. Pity I couldn't have got up the north to get to the show tonight, but hopefully he'll be coming back to to the Republic very soon as well, and we can get to see him. So great for everyone involved. Fair play to everyone who put on the show, and it looked like an absolutely fantastic show. Right, everybody, I think that's just about it from me. Thank you very much for listening. If you haven't signed up on Patreon, patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast. This is here on early access now for those listening. Thank you to everyone on Patreon. There'll be loads of stuff. Myself and Ian actually have a Chasing Pack episode, an Irish special, already recorded, so that's coming out Wednesday. I actually spoke to Brad Wharton as well, or actually he texted me. He was like, right, Sean, when are we doing the Cage Warriors preview? And we will be doing that the Monday of Cage Warriors, so that'll probably be out the Tuesday/Wednesday. I said slash again. Am I using the word slash? Am I going to start saying OMG next in sentences and stuff? But yeah, so like loads of stuff coming up anyway. Patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast, or go to severemma.com/pints, PINTS. Costs the price of a pint a month. And I'm here at 3:30 in the morning recording this podcast, so you could help us out. Thanks very much for listening, everybody, and we'll see you all next time. Good luck.